All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Social Studies TIC session. We've got a great lineup of teachers today that have some great things they're doing in the classroom that they'll share with you. Before we get started, just a couple quick things, though. The restrooms are right across the hall if anyone needs those. If anyone needs coffee or any other sort of snack or refreshment, out by the front door, we do have a little lounge area that has some vending machines and things like that within the lounge area. So during some of our breaks, if you need anything, feel free. We will have a couple of different breaks throughout our day today. During our breaks, also make sure to check out, we've got on the back table back here, some of our makerspace types of materials that we're kind of showcasing, so you can stop by and check those out and see some of what we've got there and get some ideas of how maybe you could use some of those things in your classes as well. To get us started today, we are going to start out with Jeff Glade from Ankeny, who actually is my brother. So we'll start off with Jeff presenting, and he's going to share with us some of the ways he's used Breakout Edu within his classes.
All right, good morning, everybody. As he said, my name is Jeff. I'm from Parkview Middle School. I teach 6th grade Ancient Civ. Here's just a little bit of background on me. This is my first year actually teaching in the middle school. In the past, I've taught 5th grade and 3rd grade, just general classroom education. This is my 4th year going one-to-one with Chromebooks. 4 years ago, piloted it in 5th grade, and then have now transitioned to the middle school, and where all the kids have Chromebooks as well. Contact information, which I'll have at the end of the presentation as well. So today we're just going to be talking about Breakout Edu. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not have. For those of you who haven't heard of it, I liken it to escape rooms. You've probably heard of escape rooms, kind of a popular trend. There's one in downtown Des Moines. Most bigger, mid-sized cities are having those now. The concept is you're locked in a room, there's sort of a scenario, there's puzzles, and you have to escape. If you are unfamiliar with escape rooms, I have a little video to give you a frame of reference. Also, if you already know what they are, hopefully you can have a little laugh. This is from The Big Bang Theory. So this is like a 2-minute video of them entering an escape room, and you can kind of see what it might be. That's kind of what an escape room might be like. Breakout Edu takes that concept kind of and puts it into a tabletop version, and you can, there are myriad games you can play. You can write your own, of course, and this is kind of a marketing little video for Breakout Edu. Again, about 2 minutes. Now, we are going to give it a shot here. In a minute here, we're going to play a shortened, condensed version of what a breakout game could be like. Now, my struggle with this is that I have many people, and we don't have 45 minutes. Generally, that's kind of your standard time for the game. So what I've done is I have created multiple puzzles. They're on your tables for the most part. A couple of you are missing a puzzle. But the hope here is that you're going to work with your table mates to try to solve the puzzle. Then collaboratively, you're going to find something within your box, or you're going to discover something related to the puzzle. And as a whole group, we are going to hopefully bring together what you find, and we have a master box over there on that table. So at the point that you find whatever you find, or discover whatever you discover, bring it up, and then we'll combine what we have to hopefully open that master box up there. Some of your clues I have used in games before. Some of them I came up with last night, so we hope they work. But when you finish, some of them are going to be slightly easier than others, as you would expect. I encourage you, if you finish your clue, to kind of wander around the room and see what some other clues might look like. I know that sometimes at these kind of meetings, people hate to get up and talk to people they don't know, but hopefully that this is kind of an icebreaker for you, and you can get through it together. As I said, 45 minutes is kind of your standard time. I'm going to reduce this to 15 minutes, and we will have a little soundtrack to help set the mood here. Okay, so with that said, let me get here. And this is, I'll mention this later, but this is kind of the official Breakout Edu Timer. It's on Vimeo. They have, this timer, but with a soundtrack, and it's this nice calming classical music, which I feel like it should be more intense, and so I made my own soundtrack, and you're gonna get to hear that one instead. So let me do my math here. 30 minutes. All right, that's close enough. So with that said, I'm going to start the timer. You have 15 minutes and 33 seconds to break out. Good luck. You did escape. Good job. Congratulations. So those of you that didn't necessarily come over, I know several people sent a person over, which is fine, of course. But I will say I was pretty pleased with what I came up with as far as bringing individual tables to one final puzzle. The card that you got had a letter on it. Then on that letter, there was a date in either BCE or CE. Up here, there was a timeline, and I had 10 boxes. And then you would place the letters on that timeline according to the date. It spelled out world dates. There were 2 word locks on there. Unlock it, and you got the we escaped sign. Kind of the reason I was so excited about this idea is teaching 6th grade, ancient Civ. We are living in BCE most of the time. Kids don't get the timeline. We try to correlate it to negative numbers, but if they don't get negative numbers, that's not that helpful. So this is just one more good way to kind of reinforce that skill, hopefully. Walking around, I saw a lot of people seemingly pretty engaged, which is what I've experienced having done this with students and staff in a PD. It's one of those things where kids get excited immediately. A lot of adults hate PD days, let's be honest, and they don't want to do whatever you give them. But it's kind of like, and Alex actually will get a laugh out of this, I say it's like my dad. So at family things, let's play a board game, let's play Taboo. I don't want to play. So, okay, we'll just all play. And then you're playing, and dad's like looking over your shoulder, starting to like give a hint because he wants to play. And that's kind of how these games are, these puzzles are. Somebody who's kind of reluctant or you're just not interested starts to see something, and they're just drawn in kind of naturally. It's a pretty cool thing to see. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So that gives you a little bit of frame of reference for what Breakout could look like. Again, this was run in a way different than I've ever done before, having each individual table have their puzzle and then collaboratively bring them together for one final solution. And I'm pretty pleased with how it worked. So now we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this and how you can make this happen in your own room or in your own school. Materials. So as you experience, some of you more so than others, there are a lot of different materials that go into this. Some groups, maybe just one group actually, only use the internet, only use their resources. Some of you were using strictly what I gave you, and some a combination of both. So you do need materials, and that can possibly be the kicker. As the video said, you can buy a Breakout box from breakoutedu.com. They're sold for $99, which is essentially at cost. It's pretty cool. The guy, James Sanders, who kind of founded this company, isn't looking to make a huge profit off of this. He's making these boxes, and this is him on the floor in his garage. He gave me permission to use this picture, and just constructing the boxes. And the master box was one of the ones that he had made, and then there was also one other table that had one of those. When you buy a box from them, you get a set of different padlocks and different tools and resources that you can use, and he just kind of loads them in there. So that's one option. It's $99, and you do have to pay shipping, so it takes it to more like $115, $120 or something, right around there. It's becoming very popular. I will say if you go home tonight and desperately want to get one, you're going to have to wait a few weeks because he's backed up. Your other option is what he calls an open source kit. And then you would have seen some of these materials around as well. I would recommend the open source kit. Now, and I say that because James Sanders isn't looking to make a profit. If he was, I would hate to tell you don't support him, but he just wants to get this game out there. And so the open source kit, you can buy each individual material or item separately, and they give you a suggested list and links to Amazon of essentially equivalent things. So pretty much everything's the same. The difference would be right here. This, I guess you can see my mess. The toolbox, as opposed to the wood constructed box. And that is the reason I would suggest the open source kit, because the toolbox is much more durable than those boxes are. One of them I'm going to have to nail again. The nails, they just weren't strong enough. And so the toolbox is more durable, plus depending on the one you get, so I have a couple of these black and yellow ones, there are a couple extra just little hiding spots within that, which can kind of add to the fun too. Plus it's just more, I mean, when I was carrying in 5 sets today, it's easier to deal with. You have a handle, So that would be my suggestion. And a lot of people are probably right now wondering and have definitely asked me, how did you get this? How did you go about doing that? And I'm going to tell you that I crowdsourced it, and these are some of the tips that I would use for you. What I did was I sent an email to parents explaining Breakout EDU and asking for their help. I've linked, this presentation is on that TIC document. I've linked the email I sent. It's just a Google Doc. Now, I'm not saying it's the best email of all time, but I can hopefully save you some time. You can just use what I've done. And I gave them a little explanation of what Breakout EDU is, link to the website, watch the videos if you want. Told them I'm looking to just bring in something a little more exciting, get their kids up and around and engaged, and parents were pumped. Sometimes kids come home not too excited about school, and so a lot of those parents who were just seeing this as an opportunity for their kids to have a little more fun in school were very excited to help out. And the cool part about doing it in the way that I did was I did a Sign Up Genius. If you've used that before, cool little website. You can just list whatever you need and then how many of those things you want, and parents sign up for it. So here's a screenshot of what I had done. I master lockout hasp 3, and then I put a shortened URL there that takes them directly to Amazon so they could see what it was, and then they could sign up for it. I should backtrack a little bit and say that I told them I'm not looking for brand new things. If you have gently used items or padlocks laying around the house, I will gladly take those. I think I had one gently used thing. Everything else they just bought new. And I also told them I'm hoping to get 1 kit, but it doesn't hurt to ask for more. So I put 3 signups for everything. They filled them. Plus, I had 2 parents say, I don't really want to deal with the Sign Up Genius. Can I just buy you a whole box? Yes, you can. So, so that's the exception. I know that you're not likely going to have many parents, asking to spend $120 for you. But they might be out there. Who knows? Especially if this is something that they feel like their kid might connect with, so they can help get that into the classroom for the kids. A couple suggestions, like I just said, overshoot on your sign up. You never know what you'll get. I never dreamed I would get 3 sets, let alone 5. Pretty incredible. And I would encourage you to also push that gently used items. Number 1, you're likely to get more. Number 2, I think parents will see that as you not just begging for help. They'll see that you're open to anything you can get, and I think that just kind of puts a better frame around it for them. So I did. I ended up with 5, and which I feel very lucky for, of course. That email went out to my team, team setup, and that was 150 parents. Produced 5. So my building has 900 families, 900 students. If every team were to send that out, who knows how many we could get. But this is, so my team now, 6 Crimson, has these 5 kits. Okay, so then that kind of gets your materials. So let's say you've gotten your materials, now how do you play the game? I have played the game several times with students and a couple times with adults now. The thing I've seen, and you'll likely see this, kids, like I said, immediately latch onto this and love it, and are running around and feeling like spies and just jumping. They're just literally jumping because they're so excited. And like I had one kid run and do a spin jump because I think he just felt like a ninja or something. So they're pumped, and then the adults a lot of times immediately latch onto it. And like I said, there's some of those reluctant ones, but they're even usually pulled in too, which is a cool thing to see. However, running the game is a task. It is not easy. So I've done it a few times, and here are some of my facilitation tips to hopefully, if you do this, make your life easier. So I'm just going to kind of go through each of these. I would suggest introducing how the game is played the day before, or the week before, whatever you can do, with a simple game. So on the Breakout EDU website, there are some, I guess you might say approved games. There are tons of games out there on the internet. There are some approved games right now. And Candy Caper is one of them. It is intended for, I think the age range on it is 3rd grade, right around 3rd grade. So it's easy for the majority of what you will be teaching, but that's a good way to introduce it because the kids it takes them like 10 minutes to do it. My 6th graders, it took them like 10 minutes to do it, and they get to get a general idea of how the game might work. One of the clues comes from Candy Caper. It was one over there. You have books, and you're looking through and finding a page number, and then the line, and then the word, and then a certain letter within that word, and then you use those letters to come up with your combination. There's blacklight usage in there, and it's good to get a general introduction. Now, I understand that you can't always just take one day out of your content, so I did it with my advisory or my homeroom group, which worked really well because then they are pretty evenly dispersed among my actual content classes. So when I played the content game, every class had 3, 4, 5 kids that kind of knew what was going on and could help lead their group. Establish rules and really think through your rules because they're going to do things that you don't want them to do because they get so excited. And they might vary depending on the game you're playing. So a rule that one of the games I came up with was on ancient Egypt, and it was kind of a linear game, meaning you had to get clue 1 solved before you could go to clue 2, on and on and on. And so what I had to come up with after my first group did it is I realized you can't just wander the room looking for clues. Because I had kids all over the place looking under trash cans and everything, and they found a clue, but it wasn't when they were supposed to find it. And so then it just provided such a roadblock to them because they were focused on that clue, but they didn't have the information they needed yet for that clue. So depending on the game, your rules might vary slightly. I would say no writing on clues, and I had a couple groups writing, which is fine this time. However, when you have a group, a period, first period, you go through the game and you need to reset it for second period. If kids are writing on those clues, you can no longer use that clue for second period. Now you're printing stuff, you're scrambling. So, and then I instituted a penalty box as well, which is like hockey. They have to sit out if they're going crazy, and so it works really well because the timer is projected. You can say when the clock is at 20 minutes, 20 seconds, you're back in the game, and so that's just one of the things I do. I would encourage you to establish a method that all kids participate. You are going to have those kids who hang back and just kind of observe. And I think that's fine sometimes, of course, that they observe because that's just kind of person they are, and they can get sometimes just as much from it as watching and listening. But I have the kids, they need to just have a little sheet of paper, and they take notes on how each puzzle was solved. So then if I were to talk to them, they could say, well, Johnny solved it, but he did it this way. He figured it out this way. And so that just allows them to still be part of it, still understand the process, and even if they split up the work. So some games, you can, like this game that we just played, you can have multiple puzzles going on at once, and that's smart. 3 of you over here, 3 of you over here, but I want them to then discuss after the fact how they got through it. And this is a big one, lesson learned. Build in time to reset the game before next period. As I said, sometimes those clues might get destroyed or whatever, but more importantly, you have a lot of locks to set back up. And if you're hiding things, get things hidden again. And so what I ended up doing was I had a list that I projected, and then the kids helped me set it up because they had just gone through the game. They got things put back where. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. We're set up on 45-minute periods. At a 45-minute game, that gives you 0 wiggle room. And the game I wrote was a long game. And so lesson learned, I know that I can take out a puzzle from that. And I would say, depending on how long your blocks are, you need a little bit of time at the beginning to set up everything, just establish those rules, and a little bit of time at the end to reset those. Because if you don't, you are going to be in a world of hurt. And the other rule that I have on a game day is kids cannot enter the room until I tell them. Because I'm still getting things set up, still getting things hidden, and which kind of adds to the excitement because they're just outside waiting to get in, and as soon as the door opens, then they rush in and they get going. So that's definitely a tip I would give you. A couple more. Encourage the use of hint cards. I didn't give you hint cards, but there are hint cards, and get the kids to use these because and encourage that there is no penalty for this. Kids are under the impression that if they use one, it's going to add 5 minutes to their time or whatever it might be. But having hint cards allows them to be successful, and that would be our goal here. If we make a content game and they only get through one puzzle, that means they miss content for the last 4 puzzles or whatever it might be. So encourage the use of these, generally 2 per team, per game. And related to that, and I think I mentioned this later, but know the game. Oh, here we go. Run through the game at least once. So you know, if you didn't write the game, so that you know how something connects to something else. Because when the hints are used, there's no standard read this hint to them. You give them a hint based on what they need. So you can differentiate your hints based on the group you're talking to. And if you know the game inside and out, you're going to give much better hints. So that's a big one. Run through the game at least once for that reason, but also just to make sure all your locks work. Everything connects the way it should. Set the tone with good intro story and soundtrack. So I had that soundtrack going. It just adds to the fun, the level of excitement, the fun there. And then the intro story, I think, is a key piece of this. On the video, the Big Bang Big Bang Theory, that like she was a nurse or something, and she had that dramatic voice that she was talking in. I like to write a fun intro story because it just sets the mood, it sets the tone. The game I wrote for ancient Egypt was Senebkeh's Revenge. And if you don't know, Senebkeh was he's a pharaoh recently discovered. We didn't know he existed. They found Senebkeh. So in the story, Senebkeh was just discovered, which released his spirit back into the world. He now realizes that there are these other pharaohs who have become very famous. He doesn't think they deserve it, so he took their monuments. So there was one group that was doing the clue from that, and so the Great Pyramid, he stole the Great Pyramid because he didn't think Khufu deserved that. He stole it and dismantled it. They had to find that clue. Then I had cut up a picture of the pyramid. They had to puzzle it back together, and then that means they saved that monument. Then they went to the next one. And if they didn't do it in 45 minutes, Senebkeh was going to trap them in his tomb forever. It just makes it fun. They like it a lot. If you're using multiple sets, color code all materials so that they belong together. You might have noticed on some of the materials, as I said, I have 5 sets. So I've color coded just with garage sale stickers, orange, yellow, pink, whatever they are. And that just helps you when you're getting the games back together. Also helps kids to, at the end of the day, get things put back where they would go. And then you can color code the clues. Now, the Egypt game that I've referenced several times, there were clues hidden throughout the room. They were color coded. So if the kids had the orange set, their clues had to be orange. If they found a yellow clue that wasn't theirs, put it back. Don't tell that group you found it. Find yours. So that just helps that run more smoothly. Additionally, that's going to help with a goal that I'll have later, and I'll come back to that in a second. And then when you design a game, consider adding that easy clue so they get success right away. So they're not struggling from the get-go. I think it's fine for kids to struggle and maybe even fail, but if you set it up that the first one's nearly impossible, they're going to give up. Some kids are going to give up. And so having that first clue there, they get pumped. You'll hear cheers. When I did the staff one the other week, we were in a big room, and groups of teachers were cheering when they got through a padlock, And so that adds to the atmosphere, but it also just helps them feel more successful. Finally, I encourage the use of debrief questions after the fact. Here's a couple examples. I'm not going to read through all of them, but this is a good step. Just when we're thinking about these games, you can do content, of course, but there's a lot of soft skills built in here, a lot of soft skills that they're missing, possibly. And so going through these debrief questions helps them to reflect a little bit on themselves, their teamwork. I think it's question D. Yeah, the strengths. How did you utilize each student's strengths, and how did you find out who had what strength? Because this is the kind of game where certain kids may shine in a way you weren't expecting, and in the way other kids weren't expecting. And so that's exciting to get to see that. More than once I've seen a group where there's the kid hanging back, and he or she says, well, what if it's this? Kind of says it quietly. Nobody hears him, nobody takes her input, they keep going, and then he gets more confidence and says it, and he was right, he or she was right. And that's happened multiple times, and so it just gives those kids a chance to feel good about themselves, but also to recognize something that they may not have known about another student. Okay, as I said, there are some games built. Breakout Edu has some more approved games, more official games, but then on the TIC website or agenda, there is a link to a Google Drive folder with tons of games and tons of resources. You can use those. You need to fill out the form, though. The link takes you to a Google form, and she needs to approve you. Some people are very into this, and they're afraid that kids are going to research and find the answers to solve the games or cheat. And so that's kind of her safeguard against that. So if you want access to that, which I encourage you to do, fill out that form. Within a day, you'll get access probably. So here are some puzzle ideas. I'm not going to go through every single one. You can read. Some of them you just saw. I do want to highlight a couple that I've either seen in use or I've tried. I like the Google Forms with data validation. Now, if you don't know what data validation is, later today maybe I can show you, but you've probably used Google Forms. It's sort of a survey in a way, but it requires the right answer to get to the next slide. So the group over here that was doing mine from Egypt, it asked who built the Great Pyramid of Giza. If they had typed Cleopatra, they're stuck. It says like try again, until they say Khufu. They get through, it takes them to the next screen. It says your first number is 1, and then it gives them the next clue. They get it right, take your second number is 2, or whatever it is, and then they've eventually gotten through and found their password or their combination. That's good because kids are going to get so excited and just rush through something. And if we're trying to keep this related to content, trying to keep this beneficial, that forces them. It forces them to use some knowledge or to use what they have. Google Maps, I tried making one last night and it did work out. You can use My Maps on Google Maps, and what I did for this situation was I had a map of the United States. There were pins on 4 different states, and on the pin, so for Oklahoma, if they opened the pin for Oklahoma, it showed your number's 8. And then the other clue that they had was they figured out they had to put the states in the order that they were added to the Union. So Oklahoma, which I learned last night, was one of the very last states. I did not know, it was like 47 or something. That was their last number in their series of numbers. So that was kind of a cool usage that I'm glad worked out. Google Cardboard, if you have a cardboard, I know people are using that, so that's that kind of virtual reality that you can hold up and look around and maybe use an address from a location as one of the passwords. Problem with that and or Asthma is you need another device, probably a phone, and I'm not going to give them my phone. If you're building, if you want to have kids download it on their phone and use it, you could do that. If maybe you have a smaller device that would work for that, those work, but I haven't found a good way for me where that's going to work. ThinFi, I just discovered recently, pretty excited about it, especially for this game. It's like a bit.ly or a URL shortener, but it requires a password. So if I want them to go to that Google map, but they have to solve something else, they put in the thinfi.com/WB1. When they go there, it says you need the password before they can see the website that you've shortened for them. So that's pretty cool. Automatic email reply, you can set up a fake email. I did that. yourfriendlypresenter@gmail.com. They had to email that. When they emailed yourfriendlypresenter@gmail.com, they got an automatic reply. I set it as a vacation, like automatic reply, I'm on vacation. And it said, ask your friendly presenter for help. They came to me. I gave them the black light. Now they had what they needed. Primary source documents on flash drives. So the kits do come with flash drives, which you probably have as well. But you can put anything on that. If they find the flash drive, plug it in, and then interact with whatever is on there. But I was just thinking that primary sources would be a cool thing to put on there. QR codes you can use. I reference this book page, word letter, so they're counting out and they find the things they need. Geocaching when the weather gets nicer outside. Audio recording, so they could scan a QR code and hear me speaking something to them, or listen to a famous speech and use that clue for something. Separate quizzes where answers combine to reveal the answer. I did this. They found a clue. It said you must split into groups of 2 and answer this quiz. They answered a 4-question quiz, but instead of multiple choice A, B, C, D, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they added up their answers. So group 1, if their answers were 1, 3, and 5, that would be 9, and then group 2, and then they would order those for their combination. This is just a thought here. You could have them watch a video, and then they need to find the timestamp when something is mentioned. So if it's just a 3-minute video on a certain concept or something, then they really have to be paying attention to the video. My struggle with some breakout games is that it gets so heavy on scavenging for things and finding things that any sort of content is completely missed. And so I'm trying to come up with different puzzles that get some content embedded within that. So that's a possibility. I have not used that. Some of my next steps, what I'm planning to do, I have a breakout club starting next week. So our school offers clubs, I think 8 times a year. They meet for 6 sessions. So what I'm doing is the first 2 sessions, they will play a game that I will give them. The next few sessions, then they're going to work in a team and design a game. The last few sessions, we're going to play each other's games. So that's, and then that's just going to get more kids to become even more confident in this, so then they can bring that to the classroom. Student-created puzzles, I just referenced that, but then you can do it within your content. something I'd really like to do is share games across schools or districts, because what I would love for is for my period 1 to come up with a game together, collaboratively, all of them, and then share it with another district, and that district plays the game they made. Because it's hard to have period 1 come up with a game and then play it, because they all know, they all know what they did. So, and then you could, cross that. It's an idea. Cross-curricular, a lot of these you can really easily build in different subject areas. I'd like to write one with another teacher. Develop differentiated games. And I said I was going to come back to those color-coded clues. In theory, you could put together teams, differentiated teams, and maybe your high flyers with a couple of your middle kids are only purple clues. And so when they find the purple clues, they're harder. So they have to work through them, and maybe and I wouldn't put all low kids together. I'd stagger it just a little bit, but your low kids with some of your middle kids, and all the yellow clues are just a little bit easier. So you can differentiate that within there possibly. My big goal for my content is to have 2 games per unit. We have 6 ancient civilizations that we look at. I would love to have a beginning of unit 1 and an end of unit. Beginning of unit to just engage the students with the topic. They can get a taste of different things about that civilization. And then the end of unit would be the review. And that's what I had done with Egypt, that it was a review of everything. So it was very specific to 4 pharaohs, but we had spent a lot of time with those 4 pharaohs. So they were able to answer that based on what we had done. Some resources. These are listed on that TIC document. There's a Facebook group. If this is something you're interested in, I strongly encourage you to go there. I have been part of many different online groups, PLNs, whatever you want to call them, and oftentimes I've asked a question and nobody responds. I find that with Twitter all the time. Maybe I'm just in the wrong groups, but if I ask a question, I get no feedback. Facebook group, there are people that are strongly devoted to this, and they will respond to you, help you, and give you a resource. It's been the most effective group I've been part of. That Google Drive that I mentioned, there are games in there. There's also just general info. It's a very helpful little Drive resource. And then there's a Pinterest board that they put together. On the Pinterest board, there's tons of different puzzles and different ciphers and codes you can use, and just find what they are and adjust them to fit your needs. Last couple things I want to address is just the use of this. So it might look like a fluff activity possibly to your administration or maybe even some of you, but there are some real things there. Some of those soft skills that I mentioned plus content. This is a research document. It's essentially, this is a domino effect. You start with curiosity and it's going to result in these things, but I just pulled out a couple that I think are really useful. So it's going to result in exploration, mastery, self-esteem, discovery, and new skills. And the process continues. And with that curiosity starting the unit, they're just going to be more highly engaged in everything that you're about to do. Last thing I want to show you is, this is from Sylvia Duckworth, 10 reasons to play Breakout Edu. I'm not going to read all of them for you there, but having done this several times now, I wholeheartedly agree with all of this. And it's just a really worthwhile activity. They have so much fun. They're so excited, but there are real things built in here that they can really benefit from. And with that said, do you have any questions? I have like 2 minutes left. Any whole group questions? You can always contact me. My information's there. Yeah.
What game did you use when you did whole staff or with your staff?
Time Warp is what it's called, which I think some of you played. Time Warp, I would suggest, it's a good whole staff one because, number one, it's not too difficult. But more importantly, it has several different content areas addressed. So there's some math. They have to balance an equation. There's some social studies. If you did a Pony Express one, somebody did that. That's from that game. And then the knot one, the Incan knots, is from that game as well. There's art in there. There's a lot of different content areas. So a lot of teachers can hopefully see something that they could connect to. And I asked for some feedback on that Facebook group, and almost everyone suggested that one. There's another one called Dr. Johnson's Lab, maybe? It's Dr. Johnson's something, and a lot of people like that one as well for the same usage. Anything else? Okay, as I said, contact information is there. I'd really be glad to help you if you ever have any questions about this. Thank you very much.